My name is Mike Stevens. I'm a professional musician. I play the harmonica for a living, and you're listening to Talking Blues.
So there was a little bit of a smile when you said I play the harmonica.
For a living.
For a living. And certainly you're not the first one to say that or to have that thing, but
oh, it's so funny.
Does it amaze you?
Oh, it amazes me, and it amazes other people even more. Because what do oh, I've heard about you. Oh, you're a great musician, a friend of my wife's or something. And they'll say, what do you play? And I said, the harmonica. And they'll either go, oh, or they'll go, for a living? So it's fun.
When you were growing up, I know that you found your dad's harmonica at your home.
Yeah.
You were 7 years old. You picked it up and made some noise. You liked the noise.
Mm-hmm.
When you were 15 or so, you decided to take it up more seriously, and you were obsessed with it. What changed? What happened when you were at that age where you decided that you wanted to spend 12 hours a day practicing?
I think what I realized is that I knew when I was a kid, like when I first picked it up, it wasn't about sounding good. It was about making a noise that felt good. Like as soon as I played, as soon as I made a noise, it was probably horrible. It wasn't anything about music, but it felt really, really good. It just felt good. It's like releasing some kind of a personal thing. I don't even know how to explain it. Something bigger than me, and that never left. Whenever I picked up the harmonica, that's what it was for me. It was trying just to play something that's whirling around inside me, something I'm experiencing, rather than learning things. And then when I was 15 or 16, I think we all go through. That's a time when your hormones are going wild and there's a million changes, and you're coming out of being a kid and maybe into adulthood, and you're wide open. You have no fear. Generally you're pretty bulletproof. And so I just really embraced the fact that made me feel good. I don't care what it sounded like. I don't care about getting in front of people. It felt really good. And I had all of this information whirling around in my head that I wanted to release in some fashion. And the harmonica for me personally was the way to do it.
But if I'm not mistaken, you didn't play in front of other people at that age, and for a while, right?
No, I didn't. Because it was personal. It's the whole thing about releasing something. It's personal. It's like confiding in a person, or I can't explain it. I mean, I know now why I did that. I can tell you why now. It's because I was born with synesthesia. And
I want to talk about that.
Yeah,
if you could, first of all, explain that. I've talked to 2 or 3 musicians who said they have that condition, and I never really went into it in depth, but people would say, well, I see colors when I hear music, which is probably way more than, far less than what it is. So can you explain it a little bit to me?
Yeah, I don't process things the same as everybody else. So all through public school and even high school, I actually quit high school, but all through public school, every report card said, if he would only pay attention. All I did was look out the window. I never brought a book home. I never applied myself in any fashion, because what was going on is every color, every shape, every image that I'd see would make music in my head. Constant music. It goes all day and it goes all night, and it did back then. So it was really hard for me to block out that, and I didn't want to block it out. So I got through school, but I never really enjoyed it. It's like it was something that I had to push who I was out of the way to be able to just get through it. And
can you turn it off? Is that
no.
Is that possible? Oh, okay.
It never goes off. When I'm on tour, I bring gaffer's tape, and I have to tape over like the green light on a smoke detector or anything like that, because it makes a sound in my head if I see it. And it never goes away. So it makes it, anybody that knows me really well knows that I'm pretty shy and I'm okay in a small situation. But when I'm in a crowd of any kind, it's like I have 40 radio stations on at the same time. It's this
Wow.
this crazy thing, and it never no, it doesn't go away. It's on all the time.
And when you play, you also see images and shapes.
Yeah, I see shapes and images. I usually see them right up here inside. And I guess, if I was to explain it to somebody, because I get asked about it so much, I did come up with a way, kind of. So if you get up in the morning and you look out your window, and let's say you're a music lover as well, and you look out and it's a foggy morning and it's kind of drizzling out. If you were to think of a kind of music to go with that, it would be in a minor key. That's a form of synesthesia. So in other words, you're attaching a feeling to an image. You know what I mean? Musically. Mm-hmm. You know right. And so, but mine is just on such a heightened level that it's crazy. And I didn't know that I had it until I was doing recording sessions, and I realized everybody had to read. And I had this crazy thing where it was like a look ahead almost. Like I could see the complex chords right here, and I'd see the tonal center, and then I'd see rings of different colors around for chord inversions and different things. And I didn't know what they were. I just knew that I could thread another color through it somehow. And I would see, I could look at a tree line and I could build a time signature out of it. Or anything. I can look at things on a desk or like anything. It's just there all the time, and it's as involuntary as a burp. I have no control over it, or I can't say that I developed this, or no, it's just how I'm wired.
Wow. So if you play one note, would it, and it triggers a certain image or a color,
yeah.
If you play that note an hour later, is it the same image and color?
No, it's a little bit different. Because I'd have to be standing in that exact spot, because I'm also getting visual information and everything that's around me as well that kind of tailors it. But it does mean that there's always original music going through my head. I can stop at any point during the day and even at night and record it. And it's crazy. It never stops. And for me, there's no rules. There's no wrong notes. There's no right notes. There's no counting time signatures. I did a record with a West African musician from Ghana, master drummer, and he would play in these way, way, way out time signatures. And also he played a thing called a gil, and it was like the precursor to the xylophone, and it had resonators underneath it that had holes drilled in them, gourds with spider webbing over them. So it wasn't a 440 instrument. And when he played it, to a Western ear, you think you knew the melody, that you could try and play it. But there were two problems. One is that it wasn't a standard pitched instrument. So I had to learn to play along with him with all bent notes, like not standard notes on a harmonica. So it's playing microtonal music, and the melody was not the one to my Western ear. It was something buried deeper in this percussive overtone series that he would play. But for me, it was really easy. And we played a big festival in Alaska, and one of the downbeat reader poll guys, I forget what he played now, but he wanted to sit in with us because he was really interested in it. And it was the funniest thing. We were playing one of the tunes off the record, and he went about 30 seconds, and then finally went, he just went like that and started laughing. But it's like, and he knows way more about music than I do, like a million times. It's just with this synesthesia thing, I can just ride along in it, and there's no rules. I'm not counting it. I'm not going intervals or math or microtonal or whatever. It's just, it just is. I made a career, first of all, out of playing wrong notes, and I made a career out of just making a sound that fits with the sound around me. And sometimes either to create tension or to create a feeling. You know what I mean? To manipulate emotion in a way.
Okay, so at 15, you're I presume becoming obsessed with the harmonica. Is it? Are you playing along to what you're hearing in your head?
Yep.
And is that how you're getting better?
Yep. Yeah, it's how I realize there's no rules because I'm just playing who I am rather than do you know what I mean? Rather than learning notes.
But are you able to replicate? And I don't know if that's the right word, but you hear something and you want to play along with it. Are you able to do almost anything you hear?
Yeah.
Are you able to follow the music that you hear in your head at the age of 16 while you're learning this instrument?
Yeah. Yeah, I am. Maybe it's like, you learn any musical instrument, and to me, it's a language, right? You learn how to speak it. You learn how to be conversational, and modes could be languages from different countries, or they could be whatever. But
Right.
At 15, I probably didn't have the vocabulary on the harmonica, but I could definitely still play exactly what's going on in my head. Now, at 68 years old, I have more facility probably and more technique than I had then. So I have more colors to paint with. I have more, do you know what I mean? I have more words to explain what this is musically.
But at that point, you're thinking everybody else has this.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that's how you play music.
And you started explaining this because that might have been the reason you didn't go out and play in public.
Mm-hmm.
When you actually decided to play in public, which I believe was audition for a bluegrass band, is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, I did.
How confident were you of your ability and the ability for you to play along with other people at that point?
I knew I could just do it. I knew that for me, it's always been really, really easy. It just is because I'm just adding a feeling to what's happening. I'm not thinking about the notes, and I'm not thinking that way. I'm just, for me, music isn't that. It's something different. It's one thing. Like if I hear 5 people playing, it's one thing to me. It's not 5 different things. It's one thing. And so I can thread something through that one thing. Do you know what I mean? That makes it easy for me to play. So, when they put the ad in for a bluegrass band, what's really interesting is that they didn't get many people applying for it. And so I went, and harmonica is not an accepted instrument in bluegrass music.
Right.
So I was a bit of the redheaded stepchild in that band where they had me play, but they didn't want me to play too much. Maybe do 1 or 2 or 3 songs in a set, and that felt kind of embarrassing because I knew I could play all the stuff. I could play harmonies. I could, add a lot of great rhythm and play the heads and solo and all that stuff. So eventually I quit that group and went to another one where I started to write music and lead the band.
Was that easy to write music and lead the band?
Yeah. Yeah, super easy. But you have to know me. You have to know the way I explain things. And I can relate this to one of my favorite musicians in the world who I love to play with is Kevin Bright. And so if Kevin and I are doing recording sessions, one time I did a session for Kevin and Hoxley Workman. They had a duo thing.
Right.
And Kevin got a hold of me, and here's the only suggestion from Kevin, because he knows me. So the first one on one tune was, okay, I want you to play like you are an oak barrel in Bavaria at midnight rolling down the cobblestone street. And I knew exactly what to play. That's the horrible part. And then for another tune, he said, I want you to play like a dying robot. And but I knew that was easy for me. I don't know how to explain it, but.
Okay, so I can't explain Kevin, who I've worked with, who I admire and respect a great deal. I watch him play and I'm in awe, and sometimes I don't know if I understand what he's actually doing.
Right. Yep.
Does he have something similar to you? Like, how is it that you can relate so easily with one another?
I think he does. No, I think he does. What I love about playing with Kevin is that he scares me. He is so spontaneous and in the moment and has so many incredible ideas, and it can go in so many directions that it's the best thing ever for me, because it will scare me. It's like, whoa, and then where do you go? And he'll pass it off and but I love that. So I think Kevin is, I think he has that. I think Kevin is wide open. I think everything's on the table. When you're like me, I think Kevin is fearless. He's not afraid of playing wrong notes. You've heard him play. He'll take something so far out, and he always comes back. Someone said recently to me, Dave Gunning told me last week, he said, you know what? He said, playing with you, he said, I can't believe it. You go way, way, way out. He says, but when you start, you already know like where there are 4 exits in the room.
But does it feel like you're going way out when you play? Like,
no, you're painting. You're just absolutely feeling it in that moment, and you're painting, and it's not notes. It's not notes, and it's not a time signature, and it's coming out of you. You know what I mean? It's coming out of you. It's like,
there's a great saying that Hugh Laurie, I think he said this about Kevin. He said, Kevin never plays the same thing once.
Yeah, he did.
But
I love that.
The other thing, when I hear you play, you are able to play fast and play a run of notes that are incredibly quick. Is that practice, or is that what you're hearing in your head and you're just then able to execute it?
It's interesting. It comes from, I really love percussion, and I really love rhythm, and I love timing. I think timing is the number one thing for me in music. Like the way, I'll get around to answering this, but let me frame it. So I think that anyone can memorize any piece of music. Anyone can have the facility to memorize any piece of music. A computer can. Anybody can, if they work hard enough. But that doesn't mean I want to listen to it.
Right.
The people who I want to listen to it play with timing. They also play with tone and other things, but they play with timing. So in other words, it's the microsecond you come in before a beat. It's the microsecond after a beat. It's every note approached in that way that isn't memorized. It's just worked on. So I mean, in the early days, I would take a metronome and I'd try and make it swing. And I'd try and make it swing by adjusting the amount of timing that I come in before it and the amount of time that I would come in after it. So the metronome wasn't for me to keep perfect time. I already got that in my head. It's to make it feel like the metronome is swinging. Or I'd take a looper and I'd lock in a loop and I'd let it go for maybe 10 minutes, and then I'd turn it off and I'd go for maybe an hour around the house with it off. And I would see if I still had that pulse internalized in my head when I turned the pedal back on to hear it. And a lot of times I did. Sometimes I could go hours and hours and I could turn that back on, and there's some part of my brain or my body that would still have that pulse going. It's a weird thing, but it sounds like impossible, but it's not. It's this groove. It's this groove timing thing that is so musical that it stays with you like the pulse of a song that you hear that you really love,
It's like a superpower.
I don't know, because it just is, yeah. Right?
That's incredible.
So
I did want to ask. So why I mean, I know you play more than bluegrass, but when you said that that harmonica is not really known as a bluegrass instrument because it's mainly based around strings, and not that you're the only person who's ever played harmonica on bluegrass, but
yep.
Knowing that, and knowing that even the first band you joined didn't really want to have you on stage all the time, what made you pursue that? Like, what made you pursue bluegrass as the genre of choice for you?
Because I knew I could do it, and I knew that the more people that didn't like it, the more it fueled me. Because I thought, I'm going to do it. It's like a punk rock attitude. I'm I'm going to try and be so good at it that you can't deny it. And so, I mean, there's a lot of stories around how I don't know how much time you have, but
All the time.
how I got to be.
Well, you see, I need you to tell that story because it's phenomenal. How you,
Yeah, it's crazy. My whole life has been a leap of faith. It has, absolutely. And my wife, I'm so lucky. I've been married 39 years and we have a 32-year-old son, and he just got married to the love of his life in our backyard last year. She's from Indonesia and we love her. She's beautiful.
that's wonderful.
Everything is good. But back in the day of playing harmonica, and starting to play some of these bluegrass festivals, we played a major festival in Carlisle, Ontario. And this would be the kind of festival where Bill Monroe would be on, and Ralph Stanley, all the big bluegrass people. And the really fun part about it was all fenced off. And while all these bluegrass legends were on stage, the audience were insane. They were wild. They would take watermelons and make helmets out of them. And then if it rained, they'd be sliding in mud pits in front of all these guys in suits and it was great. I loved it. So we played there, and a band called the Lewis Family. Even Elvis was a fan of these guys. They're from Georgia. They heard me play, and Little Roy Lewis came backstage, and he said, how fast can you play? And he said that I said faster than you, and I did not say that. If anybody knows me, they would know that's not what I would say, but that's what he says. So he plays a banjo tune, and I keep up with him. And he says, well, you're coming out on stage with us. So I went out on stage with them, and they're all really short, and I'm pretty tall. So it must have looked crazy, and they were all dressed up in suits. And I think I had cutoffs and work boots and an old T-shirt on. But when we played, the crowd went crazy, burned the place down. So after that, Little Roy Lewis came up to me, and he said, I've got a question for you. He said, if you agree to follow the tour bus all around North America, he says, I can't pay you. I'm not going to pay you. He said, but if you agree to follow the tour bus around North America, what we'll do is when I'm at a show, a festival, I'll stop in the middle of our portion and I'll say, what this song needs is a harmonica. And he said, I want you to put your hand up and say, I have a harmonica. And he said, I'll call you up on stage. I can't pay you. He says, I'm not going to pay you. But he said, if you agree to do that, I'll put you on stage. But I can't pay you. Must have said that 8 times. And I thought about it. And I went to Jane and I said, Little Roy Lewis says that we can, follow the bus around North America where they're playing, but they won't pay us. And we had a Mazda 323 with no air conditioning, and we didn't have anything at all back then. And looked at Jane, and we looked at each other, and we said, let's do it, this leap of faith thing. So we ended up following the tour bus all over North America. And what would happen 9 times out of 10 is that I'd play these massive festivals, and Little Roy stops in the middle, and does anybody have a harmonica? And I say, I have a harmonica. And I'd go up on stage, and usually we would get a standing ovation, and it went really, really well. And they would make a big thing out of me being Canadian, so they probably thought, well, he doesn't know any better that the harmonica doesn't fit in here, so we'll feel sorry for him. But anyhow, they ended up passing the hat. I made more money than the bands on the bill, and I got a booking for the next year, and I went all across North America doing that.
I have to ask.
We played
obviously, Jane, your wife, is very dedicated to you. I don't know what you presented to her as your future, but the fact that she would go along with that, and also knowing that there's no guaranteed money.
It's no money.
So
yeah.
I know that the Lewis family is way up there in the bluegrass world. What were you hoping to achieve out of doing this without any guarantee of money? And then you're also at that festival with your band. So what happened to your band at that point?
Well, I kind of said so long, more or less, and still played a bit with them. But you know what was in my head, honestly, is it wasn't about money and it wasn't about being famous. It was about like in the early days of playing harmonica and bluegrass, there was really nobody playing and touring with the first generation guys. Nobody. Like I played with Monroe and I played with the Lost and Found and I played with Jim and Jesse. Toured with them like for years and years and years. And nobody had done that. So, but in the early days of that, people would protest by turning their backs in the audience. Or they would come to the record table and say really bad stuff to Jane, about the harmonica player and all that. But every time that happened, I really thought about it. And I thought, you know what? I love this music and the way it feels. So I have something in common with these people that hate me. I really do. I have something in common. We both love it. And I was driven to prove that I could play so well and figure out a way to fit in that they couldn't deny it. And sure enough, as I continued to tour, I played a festival in Georgia. Jim and Jesse invited me on to play. Went really well. Jesse came back and said, you need to be on the Grand Ole Opry. So about 3 weeks later, I ended up on the Grand Ole Opry, and I got a standing ovation that just wouldn't quit. It went on and on and on and on. And from that moment on, the folks that were turning their chairs were buying my records.
I presume that was a life-changing moment.
It was.
I mean, one can see that on the internet. It's there. It's an incredible thing. I don't know how you felt about that opportunity, because it wasn't just the fact that, it was also the fact that these legendary musicians were giving up their little spot to feature you, which is incredible.
On the TV part.
Right.
That no one gives up their TV part.
Do you have any explanation for that? Is it just, did they just love and respect what you did so much that they were willing to do that?
They believed in it. And Roy Acuff became my biggest fan. And as musicians, I'd like to say that we don't search for validity. I'd like to say that, but we do.
Right.
And to have Roy Acuff and Jim and Jesse and all of these, Bill Monroe, all these people really like me and champion me. And Roy was my biggest fan. Even when he was blind, he'd have people lead him to the stage when I played. And he'd come and stand right beside me, while I played. And that gave me a feeling that I can't trade for anything. It's like, how do you ever expect anything like that? How in a million years would, I can't explain it, but.
Am I wrong to assume that you could have followed any genre, whether it be jazz, maybe even classical, with the ability that you have on the harmonica? And in some ways, you kind of have pursued other genres. It's not,
I have.
So this happens. It changes your life. But is it immediate that you're starting to tour and play with these legendary bluegrass musicians?
Yeah, it became a sensation in Nashville, and I got offers to do sessions from DreamWorks Studio, James Stroud, and my friends who I'd play with would be like Chet Atkins and John Hartford and Earl Scruggs and John, like everybody. Every weekend we would play with these guys. They became my friends. Jane got lessons on the music business from Earl Scruggs' wife, Louise. And it was endless. All of these people were the first generation guys were on my side. And I think I know what it was. Like, I knew nothing. I knew nothing about it, but I didn't come from, I think I came up like they did. These guys banged around in the backs of trucks, and they played schools for 25 cents a ticket, and they starved, and you know what I mean? They weren't, it wasn't social media that brought them to the table or a big whack of money. Right. It was them having a leap of faith and getting discovered,
Was there a possibility of you doing anything other than music?
Yeah, I worked at I had a job. I had a really good job, probably a dream job for, Sarnia. I had a job measuring the molecular weights of hydrocarbons. It's a high-tech job, process analyzer work, and it was really good money, and it's money for life.
Sorry. And were you married to Jane at this point?
Yep. I
And
was.
how did she know your yearning for music? Like,
Hmm.
did she see you as more of a musician, or did she see you as this guy who's working and who has this musical hobby in mind?
Music, 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 and she knew it. And so I was literally flying to Japan for the day, playing a concert, flying back again, and going back to work on Tuesday.
Wow.
And I did things like that for 15 years. We'd play 4 states and get no sleep and then drive back. And I'd use my holidays in half-day increments. And I kept both careers going for as long as I possibly could.
How
And
did
then
you come to that conclusion of giving up the other career and following your musical dreams?
it's really interesting. So they were having a downsizing at the plant, but they didn't really want to downsize me because I had a high tech job. So I put my name in for it, but they didn't want to do it, and I had to really push and push and push and push.
Because you wanted the package.
Yeah. So I got some money to leave, but what's really interesting is the day after I quit my job to play the harmonica for a living, my wife lost her job. So,
Wow.
but it worked out. It's this leap of faith thing. We both knew, like, there's a flow to things, and it was the right thing to do. It really was. My gut said it. I had a bunch of bookings, carrying on, and a lot of times you land on your feet if you really believe in it, and I believe that.
At that point, are you still practicing like 12 hours? Well, you can't be doing 12 hours a day, but you're
I'm
still
practicing
working to
a lot.
becoming a better harmonica player.
I am, yeah, I still am, but yeah, I am like crazy. I am, because now I'm seeing that I've got a wider audience, and that fueled some other part of me. Before, it was just playing what's inside of me, but when you get in front of that many people and have a national, worldwide audience on television, that's fuel to just want to play better and better and better and better, and yeah, so it didn't stop.
So you're getting accepted in the States as this great harmonica player. What is happening to you in Canada?
Yeah, I won a whole bunch of awards in Canada. I think the Canadian bluegrass industry knew. I won a bunch of awards there, and they were really good to me.
Right.
But no, in general, no one knew really what was going on, and but that's fine. It's like I wasn't after that, and I just was just playing music, and yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but I don't think anybody really knew about it.
At one point or another, you decide to go out and record a solo album.
Yeah.
What was that? Like, were you really well known by that point? Did you have
Yeah.
a big following by that point?
I did.
Was that a
And,
risky thing to do in any way or not?
No, not at all. And because I knew I could sell just a ton of CDs. And so, I had the dream band. All these first generation guys, best players in the world, were all my friends. They'd all play for nothing. And Bill Vorndick, who did, all the early Mark O'Connor stuff and Bela Fleck stuff and Newgrass Revival, he was the engineer. We did it at that studio. These are best in the world people. And I went in, I think, in a day and a half and made a record, and with all these legends on it. And I didn't even have a cover, a photo for it. So right after I recorded that, we took off on a bluegrass cruise that we were playing, a bunch of Opry people and stuff. And you know how when you're on a cruise, I'd never been on a cruise, but you're walking up the stairs, and before you eat dinner, someone will want to take your picture, to sell you later. That's
Right.
the picture that's on the cover of the CD. So that's how it worked. And I sold a lot of them.
Did you know what your solo career would be like?
No.
Did you have an idea?
No, not at all. I still don't. Honestly, I don't. I don't.
Well, I don't know what that means.
Well, here, let me give you an example. So at one point, I could be playing, and I did play, with the percussionist from the Isley Brothers, one of the world's best euphonium tuba players, and myself in a trio format for a 2-hour theater concert. Then, I got a call from Chris Hadfield to be in a band with 5 astronauts. And then I played the most northern concert in the history of the world on the ice at the North Pole.
Right.
Then other times, coming up in 2 weeks, for instance, Wabano Hospital in Ottawa. It's the largest Indigenous hospital in Canada, and folks fly in from all over Canada. It's the biggest fundraiser in Ottawa. So they approached me about taking part in it, which is really humbling and a huge honor because I'm not Indigenous, and this is all Indigenous. So they have a theme every year. This year, their theme is how Indigenous people throughout history have interpreted the constellations. So not like Orion's belt for us or the Big Dipper. This would be more like when we saw this constellation, that told us that we had to do this or change this or go here or go there. It's like way, way deeper meaning. So that's the theme. And there's going to be hoop dancers and other people to portray this. And I started off on a stage in the middle of the audience. And what I'm challenged with is I have to play what the universe sounded like before the planets were created.
That's simple.
But yeah, well, it is for me. It is because I before that, when I was with the NASA astronauts, one of them had just come back from the space station, and he had invented a way of taking photographs. And he's the oldest living active astronaut. He knew that I had synesthesia, so he was holding up images, and he was recording me interpreting those and through sound. And he said, well, there's no sound in space. And I said, I know, but the images create a sound for me. And it was what he wants to do is he wants me to go to NASA headquarters and he's going to talk about his photography, and then I'm going to interpret them into sound, and it's going to be in a theater right at NASA headquarters. So they're working on that. So that was already in my head. And I also know that, while I'm been lucky enough to travel all over the world playing music, and I like to go in old buildings, cathedrals, whatever, and I'll go down to the basement and I'll just listen. And these are places without electricity, and almost all the time, the note that you'll hear will be either an F or a B flat. And it's not mechanical noise. It's not the sound of a fridge. It's not the sound of transformers. It's somehow this ancient sound. And so for me, I already know exactly what I'm going to do to make that sound, and it will be an F or B flat. And I can hear it. I can hear it already. I've heard it before, and I'll just interpret it that way.
Okay, so I want to get into this a little bit, but the Indigenous thing I can understand because you've done a lot of work with Indigenous people.
Yep.
And I want to talk about that. But the other thing you've mentioned is things that you've done in the field of science, whether it be a North Pole expedition or, these things that working with NASA. What's the connection there? Like, what's your connection to science, and why are you on expeditions and playing in North Pole and things like that?
Yeah, it's a leap of faith thing again. So I worked with kids for 25 years. Started a nonprofit called Arts Can Circle, and developed techniques mainly through this synesthesia thing that there's no rules with music. And I've done looping since I used open tape machines long before bluegrass or anything. I was way into it.
Right.
And so what I would do is I would build these little loopers that you could stick a microphone in, and then I would adjust them so that you could manipulate your throat to almost throat sing through them. And then I would work with kids who sometimes were neurologically challenged for different reasons I won't talk about. But and I even worked a bunch in the first inhalant treatment center in North America in Bethel, Alaska, which is also where the first school shooting was. But anyhow, working with kids who are sometimes even nonverbal and who some doctors say are neurologically compromised. But what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll have a harmonica and I'll I will show them that it's not sound, it's feeling. In other words, these aren't notes. They're, I'll say, if someone names a feeling, I can make a sound that is that feeling. And at first, they might chuckle or not believe me, but then it will go on, and then they start to believe it. And then you'll have a kid say things like, play remorse, or play, like it gets really heavy. And at that point, it's not a trick. It's not a trick. For me, it's not. It's just how I play music. So it's easy for me to do it, but there's a real responsibility to do it right. So then I'll hand kids these little loopers, and they can instantly, with a microphone, sometimes even nonverbal kids, hum or do whatever and lock in loops and create original music, like original music. So I was working with kids in the Torngatz in the up the north coast of Labrador, and I was flying back from there, and Jane said, "Oh, there's some company got a hold of me, and they want you to go through the Northwest Passage." And I said, "Oh, well, it sounds like I'm being punked. You get a bunch of weird stuff all the time, and don't respond to it." And so they got a hold of her again, and she said, "No, I think it's legit." And I'm still flying back. She said, "It's a company called Abercrombie in Kent." And I went, "Oh, okay." So I Googled them, and they're like connected to Prince Charles, and they're the royal family, and they're like super high scale, expedition travel thing. Wow. And they wanted me to be a part of their expedition team that had members from Harvard and Cambridge and world climate experts and best photographers in the world, like Michelle Wahlberg, the #1 wildlife photographer in the world. They wanted me to be a part of that expedition team and find my way through it. And so I agreed to do it, not knowing what my role would be. But I realized my role was to try and get sometimes some entitled people that think could even control the weather. They're so wealthy, but they're nice folks, but to make them understand how to act when they're in remote communities, and to see the intelligence and the beauty in these folks and what there is to learn, rather than, if you look at somebody's yard and it's got, 5 dead snowmobiles and it's got parts everywhere. Well, that's because they use every flipping part or, you don't take pictures in people's windows, or you don't walk down the middle of the road. That was kind of my job. And I got to play like one concert during the trip.
In the North Pole.
Yeah. So that started me going through the Northwest Passage and then to Antarctica. And then I was scheming and actually got on an icebreaker to the North Pole, and right at the North Pole, and got lowered onto the ice and actually played a concert right exactly on the North Pole. And Forrest Gump stuff.
I have to ask, I mean, it's cold up there.
Oh,
I don't know how your instrument, or even you yourself, and how you might play the harmonica changes when you're in that environment.
Yeah, I got frostbite, a little bit of frostbite on my hands, and it was really windy. But the PA actually kept blowing over. They had to tie it down with ropes. And I stood on a pallet on the ice, and an audience came out. It was really cool because a bunch of scientists and some passengers came out, even though the wind was howling. And I played for about 30 minutes, I guess. And it was incredible. It was like, I just couldn't believe it. I was wired for days after that. And it just, how does that happen?
Really?
It just, but it's a leap of faith. It's the same reason we took off for no money, to follow the bus. Well, I'll try to go on an expedition team, and I know nothing about anything. I'm the special needs member, but I did it, and it turned out great. So that just keeps happening, those kinds of things. And I honestly believe that I can feel exactly like I did when I was 7 years old. When I picked up that harmonica and made that noise, I'm 68 now. I can feel exactly the same way. That's the real magic. That's the magic in playing an instrument and being connected to that, and not nothing against anybody else that memorizes music and plays covers. Anything that's good for you is awesome. But for me personally, when I can play exactly how I feel, like that kid, and I can do it at 68, it's like the fountain of youth. I can connect to something that's ageless.
Do you ever play the same thing twice? Like, do you ever play any music, any song, even if you recorded it? Is it ever exactly the same?
Not exactly, but I can work and do it, but it's like doing math. I would rather just ride in it and react to what the other musicians are playing around me at that time, because it's never exactly the same. But I guess it does always change. It's never completely the same.
Okay, so I know you've talked about this many times, and I hope you don't mind talking about it again. But there's a moment in your life that you're touring, and it changes your life. It changes everything. And,
Yeah.
and this is outside of Goose Bay. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I'll start off by saying I'm a really lucky guy. Like, I'm really lucky. I mean, the fact that anybody would even listen to me play is a big deal. Everybody wants to be listened to, whether you're a musician or not. That feeling of being listened to is incredible. And then add to it that if somebody would actually pay to see you, that I'm so lucky, and it's incredible.
But this is the thing that you were going after as you were growing up, right? Okay.
Yeah, it kind of was, but you don't think it's really going to happen.
To that extent, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you think that maybe you can make people stand up, right? And I figured out ways to do that in a show, but I couldn't have dreamt everything else that's happening. And so anyhow, my career was at its high point, and I got booked to go on a military tour to play for Canadian peacekeepers. We were headed to Alert, the northern tip of Ellesmere Island, and then on to Bosnia. It was after the ethnic cleansing, but there was still a lot of trouble there. And so we took off on this tour, and we stopped off for fuel in Goose Bay, Labrador, and we had a concert to play there. And I'd heard a little bit about this community called Sheshashi and what they were struggling with. And at that point, it was low-level flying, because NATO had their fighter jets there, and they were low-level flying and scaring off all the wildlife for the traditional Innu folks who were hunting and subsistence living, right? And so there were protests about that. I also heard a bit about some high suicide rates and things that just shouldn't be happening. And so when it was time for me to play a concert, I got a local paper just to have something to talk about. And I decided that on my portion of the show, I would talk about that community and those kids. And I looked out at the audience, and it looked like it was primarily white audience. I didn't see any Indigenous people, which was weird to me, because it's really basically a fly-in community. You could drive it, but the Trans-Labrador Highway would be a day and a half on a gravel road at that point. And why weren't there Indigenous people in this theater? So I talked about that community and the kids, and played Amazing Grace, dedicated that song to them, and got a really icy response from the audience. It wasn't racism. It just was something very close to the bone. It was like touching on something that everybody there knew about and was uncomfortable about, and just, it wasn't racism. It was just, anyhow, I backed away, went to the record table, and thinking that I'd done something wrong, maybe brought the whole thing down. And a guy came up to me who lived close to Sheshashi and said, "If you sneak away from your tour, I'll drive you out there." And so I thought about it for a second, and as an entertainer, musician, whatever, we're the loudest voice in the room. We have a microphone, right, talking to people. Doesn't mean we know any more than anybody else. So what gives me the right to talk about this and not know more about it? So I did sneak away from the tour and met him early in the morning and got in his pickup truck, and we rolled out towards Sheshashi. And what I saw shook me up. I won't go into everything, but basically, we'd see little crosses along the side of the road, a whole bunch of them, and they were where people had lost their lives, and in some cases kids, and sometimes you'd see toys, and sometimes you'd see Catholic emblems, and just kept going and hearing the stories. And we got to the top of the hill, and there were mounds of dirt with crosses in them, and he explained that these houses had burned down with sniffing and gas and stuff. Anyhow, I felt like I drove off the edge of Canada into something. I was embarrassed, and I was mad, and I felt useless. And, I got more stories as we drove around there. And I thought, well, this is not good. I'm not coming back with a story about a community not having connected in any way. So I'm not a kid's entertainer, but I got him to take me to the school. And I went into every room in the school, not a fancy school at all, and just tried to connect with these kids. I would have stood on my head if I had to try and just connect. And I went to every room and played for them and offered to send them harmonicas back and did connect with them. As we were leaving, we rounded a corner, and there by a roaring fire were about 6 or 7 kids. And all I'm going to say, I don't want to stigmatize these kids, so what I'm going to say is they were dealing with really heavy stuff out in the open. And he stopped the truck, and I went and played music for these kids. And at that point, I didn't know if they would just tell me to screw off, because I had no right to do it. I had no right. I don't know what they're going through. I had no right to even engage them. And or I don't know if we're by a fire, if something bad could happen, or if it would. I just didn't know. But I did go out and play, and what happened changed my life and changed the way I think about music. So these kids who nobody would even go near, they'd be afraid to go near, all of a sudden started to ask me questions like, where are you from? What's your name? Are you married? What's your wife's name? Do you have any kids? What's his name? Colin. We started to have a conversation like that. They were real questions. They were the ones connecting with me, and not the stereotypical images that people think. They were good kids just dealing with something really hard. So kept playing music. Some of that got filmed. I offered to send them harmonicas as well, maybe to the school. I told them, go to the school, and these kids probably don't go to school, but I said, go there, there'll be harmonicas there. We left. That footage ended up going all around the world. And
it's a powerful, powerful image. And when you sat there and played for them, and I can't imagine the moment you started, but it's an intimidating image of what they're going through and what they're doing and how they're watching you. And I can't imagine. There's nothing that could have prepared you for that. You probably never played to anything close to that.
Never. And it's never left me. That's why, you see I wear a ulu, and why I wear that ulu is the original one that I wore is from Labrador, and I wear it because I never want to forget those kids and that feeling. I never want to get playing too fancy or in too much, you know what I mean? Get too much fame where I lose track of that. So that's why I wear it. But anyhow, continued on tour, went to Alert, and Jane got in touch and said, everybody's seen you on television, and all these media outlets want to talk to you about sniffing. And she said, I don't know what's going on. I don't understand, because we didn't have time to talk very much.
Right.
And so I explained a little bit. But at Alert, no one calls you there because it has to be transmitted by satellite. And I got a call, and I thought my mom had passed away because she'd been sick for years, and Jane and I were her caregivers. So I went walking in the room, and it was a military person had their hand out with a phone in it, and I grabbed it, expecting some bad news. And it was As It Happens, and it was Mary Lou Finley. And she
This is
said,
a CBC program for those who don't know.
yeah, and she said, I saw the footage and I want to talk to you. And it happened right there. And no, it was like someone had scraped off a wound. I was pissed off, and I was embarrassed to be a Canadian that this is happening in our country. I was angry, I was hurt, I was all these things. And so I just ranted for 20 minutes. And I don't know in that interview, but I know in subsequent interviews, I started to figure out ways to connect ordinary Canadians with these kids. And it wasn't money, because that's never worked. I mean, every government program in the world has maybe well-intended, but in many cases they get a big whack of money, and they have social scientists, and they sit in a room and dream up a template that would be good for a community without ever having consultations with the community. It should be a partnership, and it should come from the community, not the other way around. So there were a lot of promises broken in the past. But anyhow, I decided that I don't want money. I want some personal way that a person can connect with these kids. And the way I thought was a musical instrument. If you have a old instrument under your bed, I don't care what it is, I'll pay to have it sent to my house, or I'll go get it, or I'll whatever. And this went all across Canada. And I filled my house full of musical instruments, right top to bottom. And I have to tell you, some of the real powerful things in this came from what it meant to my son. So a lot of times, I'd be driving around picking up instruments. I'd pick up Colin from grade 3 or grade 4, and he'd be in the car, and we'd go to get an instrument, and he's a real fidgety kid. And we'd drive way out half an hour and then down a long driveway. This happened numerous times. And we get to this house, and it's a farmhouse. And it's an older woman, and she looked like 75, 76. And she said, "Oh, come in and sit down." And we sat down, and she gave Colin a cookie, and we had tea. And there was no talk of any musical instruments at all. And it went on for probably an hour. No talk of a musical instrument. And Colin's super fidgety. And finally, it got to the point where she said, my son was in a car accident, and we lost him. And he was a guitar player. And we couldn't sell the guitar, and we couldn't give the guitar away. But we heard about you, and we think this is where the guitar should go. Wow. So Colin grew up hearing people giving like this, right? So if there was a gift that I got from doing this work for 25 years, that's the gift, So anyhow, filled the house full of instruments, got a transport truck company to take these instruments all the way up to Sheshatshiu, and they were kind enough to give me the treatment center to do a workshop. I had never done a workshop in my life. I'm a Grand Ole Opry guy, all that. And but I'm going to do a workshop. So I drive all the way up there, and there it was. The treatment center is filled with musical instruments. And the day of the workshop, there must have been 80 kids waiting at the door of all different shapes and sizes. So in my mind, I think, this is going to be orderly, and this is going to be this and that, Mr. Never Done a Workshop. And the door flings open, and Mako, it's beautiful. What happened is they ran in, and everybody immediately grabbed an instrument, and it was chaos. It was like, I'll have images of a little girl with a giant accordion and two kids fighting with guitars, and it was like the best punk band in the world. It was like everybody grabbed an instrument and just went for it. It was beautiful. It was what music's supposed to be. It wasn't, you can't touch this. No, you must have a lesson. No, it was just pure joy. And that's when it hit me that there's more to this. And so from that point on, I started going into flying communities and loading myself up with harmonicas and going out at night and looking for kids who were, sniffing and I would play, and I would hand them harmonicas, and I would bomb the community with harmonicas. You know, like places like Davis Inlet, and you know, I'll never. Usually, when I left a community, I'll never forget Davis Inlet. Like 2 o'clock in the morning, it's still daylight, and you could hear harmonicas ringing all over that community. Like there's so much beauty, there's so much I've learned, and so many incredible things. Everybody, you know, would say, "Oh, why, you know, why are you spending all your money?" Or, you know, "You're getting sick," and I was getting sick doing it. I mean,
because of stress, because of
yeah, the conditions were really bad.
Right, okay.
Then. It was bad water, and it was there's a lot of even back then. Like there's always been such an inequality. Like why don't we have clean water for communities? Why is there food insecurity? Why isn't there housing? Why do 5 families have to be in a house? Why don't you have schools with Indigenous teachers? Why don't, you know, it's changing. But anyhow, all of that created an environment where people live in conditions that it's easy to get sick in. And, you know, I got sick a lot, you know, and I got burned out, and I was going broke. So that's when I started, you know, I always had the idea to bring in more people, and I slowly started to bring in more people. And then through Estelle Klein, she kept calling. People would call me all the time back then and want to get involved, and I'd turn them down. Like 3 or 4 times I'd turn them down. Even wealthy people, you know, that wanted to do stuff, because I didn't want anybody screwing it up for a photo op or for, you know, going there with the wrong intentions, because you're not getting paid to do this. And so anyhow, she kept calling, and I talked with her, and she said, "Okay, what would you like to see happen?" And I said, "Well, this needs to expand, because I can't do it all by myself. I'm going to get really sick. It needs to get bigger." And I told her that I thought, you know, maybe the folk world would be the way to do it. And Estelle Klein was very connected in the folk world. I think with Mariposa, I believe she's the first one maybe in North America that had the term workshop. And she first one to bring in different ethnicities, different artists from all across the world, really, different types of music. But she was great. So we had long conversations. We had a meeting at Hughes Room with a bunch of folk people, and that's where Arts Can Circle, you know, was born through that. So from that point on, we just started loading up communities with donated musical instruments and recording studios, all communities all across Canada, and lending libraries of instruments. I think at this point I've handed out more than 50,000 harmonicas. And
you
also
don't have sponsorship, right? Like you don't
Nope.
have like a harmonica sponsorship.
I don't want it. Yeah, I don't want any labels on any of this stuff. Yeah, I don't. It's there's something about me handing a kid a really good harmonica, like a real instrument that's got nothing attached to it, is very powerful. And you know, and in the long view of 25 years of this, I know that it's way more powerful not to have an old white guy standing in front of these kids. Even though I'm good at it, it's not the thing to do. When you see somebody that has your experience, an Indigenous person, artist, in front of these kids, you know, that they can relate to, that's the magic. That's so, you know, for all this time, it's been trying to figure out how to turn that wheel to make this more Indigenous based. And now we are. I mean, our executive director, Laura Buxton, is brilliant. And she's Dene, and we send Indigenous artists probably 80% on all our trips that are doing workshops. And I have this going in Alaska as well now too. So.
Wow. So anybody wants to check out what this is all about or make donation, they can go to artscan.circle.ca.
Yeah, that's it, Mako. Yeah, our artscancircle.ca. And we're not a big bloated agency, but I like to think that we go deep and not wide, and we do really good work.
When you think, I mean, you just think about that moment and how it changed you and what a change it's made to so many people. How did it change you musically?
Made me realize even more that this personal stuff, like this personal way that I play music, can relate to people on a more meaningful level than someone buying a ticket to see me. It can, it's cliche to say, oh, music can, explain things that words can't. Well, you know what? We all know if we're in front of here's an example. If we're in front of a musician, right? We know if a musician is playing from their heart and that if it's real. You have two players, right? And they both play almost the same thing, but you instinctually know the one that's playing who they are, and kids get that. They get that. They have really good BS detectors. So even if you play wrong notes, it doesn't matter. If you're trying to connect through this and giving it all your heart, they get it. And they're wide open to it. And I guess that's maybe what I learned. I learned that music is a really special thing, and that it's a gift, and that it's ripping around all the time, and it just has more value than to sell stuff.
I mean, it's, when we started this conversation and you were talking about being a harmonica player, and we laughed about it a little bit, but it's amazing that one little instrument and how far it's taken you, and the journey, not just physically around the world, but in so many different levels, what that little instrument has meant to you and what it's given you.
Yeah, it's weird, and I don't feel like I'm playing the harmonica. I know this sounds odd. This is probably the weirdest thing I'll say, but it's true. I don't feel like I'm playing a harmonica. I feel like my body is the instrument, and this is a speaker that I put in there, and you can't see what you're doing anyways, right? Mm-hmm. I honestly don't feel like I'm playing a harmonica. When I'm sitting in or when I'm whatever I'm doing, I'm just making a noise that fits with the other noises. Like, I'm not playing a harmonica. I know that'll sound weird to somebody. Say, well, of course you're playing a harmonica. You got a harmonica in your hands. But that's not what it feels like. It doesn't feel like that. It really doesn't. It just feels like you're in this mix of sounds, and grateful to be in it. And I'm making a sound that's a part of it, That's why there's no genres.
But are you still associated to bluegrass?
Yeah, I am. I mean, I'm playing all kinds of stuff. Like lately, I'm playing a bunch of Coltrane stuff and Schofield and in a really cool jazz trio, and It's been really challenging. And they're friends, so they let me play wrong notes all over it, which I love.
But isn't jazz all about wrong notes?
Yeah, exactly. Just do them twice. Yeah. So, but that's been a lot of fun. And, but yeah, I mean, I could jump back in the bluegrass thing at any time, and I love bluegrass. But to me, I don't see separate genres in that way. Like this show's called Talking Blues, and for me, blues are feeling, and you can have that feeling in any style of music, classical to whatever. It can be blue. Right. It can have that. So I don't, I grew up listening to pre-war blues and string band music and all that stuff, and I love it and I respect it. It's my favorite music. The atonal, preaching stuff, from, you don't think Son House played wrong notes or Book of White or, you know what I mean? But it would rip you apart. It would rip you apart. And bluegrass, the same thing. Bill Monroe, we used to play a tune called Evening Prayer Blues. We shared a dressing room, and Bill would always get me to play it with him. And DeFord Bailey had the tune originally, but it's even earlier than that. And it's blues. Bill learned how to play mandolin from Arnold Schultz, a black blues musician. But it's all just feel and personality and I know there's certain rules for, Chicago blues and West Coast blues, and, there's definitions of these things. But I think when it comes right down to it, this just personally, I think it's just a feel. It's a feeling, and it's pretty hard to put a color or a description on a feeling, I don't know. I'm rambling.
My final question to you. At this point, do you have goals?
I don't. Yeah, I don't. My wife wants me to have goals, but I don't, because I just seem to roll into the next thing. It just keeps going, and I just want to be in the moment I'm in, and not too focused. Like, I have so much to learn on the harmonica and about music. I really do. I have so much, and I also have so much work to do with ArtsCan and with things like that. So I don't have goals. I just want to keep being there in the moment,
Sorry, I do have one more question.
Yeah.
Amazing Grace, which is the most amazing piece of music. I think there's a real connection to you with that song. I think you recorded it on your first album. I think you recorded it recently. There have been many special occasions, like playing in North Pole. I think you played at that, and a few other places.
Yep.
What's that song mean to you?
Means to me, it's not religious for me. It's, it was a slave ship captain, right, that wrote it. And I thought about that, and I thought, I think what it represents is the fact that you can look at somebody that's done a bad thing and instantly define them by that. But that's not always who they are. That's a thing they did. And Amazing Grace can make people feel really, really good. It can also trigger some people, depending on if you attach the religious connotation to it. But for me, that's not why I do it. I do it because it's got this... It's got this thing of non-judgment in it for me, not a religion thing. And that's why I play it. That's a really good question and something I haven't thought about, but that is why. I think it's just a non-judgmental piece of music that came from this person that did terrible things that you know what I mean? It's just so crazy that it can soothe people in that way.
Wow, it's such a stunning piece of music.
It is. It's simple, really but it is. Yeah. Yeah, it really is.
Mike, it was a real pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm
thrilled. You too, Mako. This is great. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.